Today, we're diving into an incredible story about a village that was literally saved from being drowned. It's this amazing tale of ingenuity, a real race against time, and a super clever plan that turned what should have been a disaster into a huge win for cultural preservation. But first, to really get this story, you need to picture the place. We're talking about Kysuce, this beautiful mountainous region in northern Slovakia. And to give you an idea, it's right in that triangle where Slovakia, the Czech Republic, and Poland all meet. This area is known for its incredible, unique wooden architecture. And believe me, that architecture is at the very heart of the story we're about to tell. And this leads us to a really fascinating question, right? What happens when progress, something we all want, threatens to just wash away the past? Today, we're exploring the incredible story of the Kysuce Village Museum, a museum that was literally born from a crisis, a race against time to save an entire culture from being flooded. All right, so our story kicks off back in the early 1970s. The region was facing this huge challenge, and it needed a monumental solution: the construction of the Nova Bistrica water reservoir. I mean, this was a massive project designed to supply drinking water to the whole area. And this is where you see the conflict perfectly. Yeah, progress was absolutely essential, but man, it came at a steep price. To build this reservoir, two whole villages, Vychylovka and Harvelka, had to be completely submerged. And that meant their unique folk architecture, all those beautiful wooden buildings, would be lost forever. But as the waters were threatening to rise, this small, super dedicated group from the brand new Kysuce Museum saw something totally different. You know, where most people saw an impending disaster, they saw a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Okay, so here's where the team's strategy gets just brilliant. At the time, in socialist Czechoslovakia, open-air museums were actually encouraged. And why? Well, because they fit the official class struggle story. It was a way to show off the hard life of the so-called exploited peasants of the past. The preservationists realized they could use this political ideology as a kind of loophole to get the official green light they so desperately needed. But how did they get the money? That's the real question. This quote from Rudolf Garat, one of the project's initiators, reveals their masterstroke. They didn't just go asking for a handout. No, they argued that because these were protected monuments, moving them was actually a necessary cost of the dam project itself. They called it an induced investment. So clever. And you know what? It worked. They secured 3 million Czechoslovak crowns, which was a massive sum for the time, taken directly from the reservoir's own budget. This was the seed money that made the entire rescue mission possible. So they have the money now, which is incredible, but they still need two more things: a place to actually put their saved village, and, a blueprint for what it should even look like. And then, talk about perfect timing. The state forest decided to decommission this historic narrow-gauge railway that was used for logging. A really unique part of it, with these cool switchbacks, was already a protected technical monument, so when the rest of the line was about to be torn up, the preservationists jumped on it. They had found the perfect, historically significant home for their new museum. And the plan they came up with? It was wildly ambitious. They didn't just want to save a few houses, oh no. They wanted to recreate the entire Kysuce region in miniature, showing off 7 distinct types of historical settlements, from the dense villages to those scattered little homesteads. Of course, a vision that grand was bound to run into the real world, right? The initial plan was to move almost 100 different structures, but with time just running out, they had to scale things back. In the end, they managed to move and reconstruct over 30 buildings, which, let's be honest, was still an absolutely Herculean achievement. So, with the plan set and the clock ticking like crazy, the truly monumental task began: physically dismantling, moving, and then reassembling an entire village, piece by piece. So who were the people who actually pulled this off? Well, it really came down to a core team. You had Peter Maraki, the visionary director. We've already met Rudolf Garat, the official who so cleverly got the funding. And then there was Dominik Shaluk, the on-site manager who had to figure out the mind-bogglingly complex logistics of moving entire houses. So you're probably wondering, how on earth do you move a 19th century log house? Well, the process was incredibly meticulous. First, they drew up detailed architectural plans. Then, every single piece of wood, every log, every plank was carefully numbered. After that, The whole thing was disassembled, transported to the new site, and then painstakingly put back together, piece by piece, like a giant historical puzzle. They even hired workers who remembered the old traditional building techniques. This timeline really shows you what a marathon this project was. From the official approval in 1973, it took 3 whole years just to move the first 5 houses. They totally missed their original opening date, and it wasn't until 1981, almost a decade after they started, that the museum was finally ready to go. So finally, in August of 1981, after all those years of racing against the rising waters, the Kysuce Village Museum opened its doors for a trial run. And the big question was, after all that, would anyone even come? And the answer was a huge, resounding yes. The public response was immediate. In just a 2-month trial period, they had over 2,000 visitors. The very next year, that number just exploded to over 9,000. It was totally clear from day one that they had created something truly special. But here's what made this museum so special. It wasn't just a static collection of old buildings. The creators wanted a living museum, a concept that was way ahead of its time. They had performances by folklore groups, live craft demonstrations. They even relocated and reopened a functioning pub. They didn't just preserve buildings, they brought an entire culture back to life. You know, the story of the Kysuce Village Museum is just this powerful testament to ingenuity and passion. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of cultural preservation are born from the most imminent threats of destruction. And it really makes you wonder, how much of the history we cherish today only exists because a crisis somewhere forced someone's hand?